Are you terrified of your rotary cutter? Do you just look at it and think, absolutely not, this is not for me? Like, why does this sewing tool look like a pizza cutter that had a baby with a circular saw? It doesn't make any sense, right? I felt the same way when I first started using my rotary cutter, but I learned quite a few things along the way, and today I'm gonna share those tips and tricks with you. I think rotary cutters can be one of the most intimidating tools for new sewists. We've used scissors our whole lives since we were tiny little humans sitting at the kitchen table cutting up snowflakes at Christmas time. But a rotary cutter, that's next level. That feels official, advanced. That feels like something only serious grown-up sewists use. Well, guess what? That's going to be you. Here's the thing, you guys. Once you learn how to use a rotary cutter confidently, it will be an absolute game changer in your sewing room, and it will make your life a million times easier. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to feel comfortable using a rotary cutter, because I promise you, sewing should never feel scary. It should always feel fun and light and happy, and that's how I want you to feel about rotary cutters. And before we jump into those tips, I'm going to give you just a tiny little history about rotary cutters, because I'm a nerd and I like to know where my tools and my sewing stuff comes from. The rotary cutter as we know it came about in the 1970s. It started out as a utility tool for other folks, but the quilting community quickly caught on and was like, this could be a game changer. Before rotary cutters, sewists and quilters and tailors and seamstresses were all using scissors with paper templates, which worked, but it was a lot slower and honestly a lot harder to get precise cut lines when they were cutting the fabrics. So along came the rotary cutter, and it completely changed the game. Instead of having to lift the fabric up to cut it, when you're rotary cutting, you'll keep it flat on your cutting mat and roll the blade smoothly across the surface. That means cleaner cuts, faster cuts, and way more accurate pieces for your sewing projects, especially when it comes to patchwork and quilting. Quilters pretty much said, well, this changes everything, and honestly, per the usual, they were right. Now rotary cutters are one of the most common sewing tools that you will find in anybody's sewing room because of all of these reasons. We don't want to spend our time cutting, we want to spend our time sewing. So if this little tiny tool of danger makes you feel scared, we are going to take care of that today. Now, before we jump into the tips, I need to thank Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. Just as I'm showing you some rotary cutter confidence tips today, Craftsy is my go-to place for when I have questions that I need to build confidence on in the sewing or crafting space. That's where I go. I love Craftsy because all of their classes are super beginner friendly. They walk you through everything step by step by step, so you're not just staring at a tool wondering if it's going to ruin your day or not. And even though you may be thinking Craftsy is just for sewists, you'd be wrong, because Craftsy covers every topic when it comes to anything DIY, woodworking, baking, cooking, gardening. It is your one-stop shop for finding the best information when learning something new in the crafting space. All of their instructors are vetted professionals in their field, and they will show you exactly how to do something slow and easy and meant for the adult learner, where they give you little chunks at a time and then you do the actual thing. I recently took a class called Building a Raised Bed Garden by Andy and Karen Chapman on Craftsy, and in this class I learned so much about raised bed gardening, how to sketch out and plan for your beds, and how to become comfortable with the tools and techniques that you need to build a strong, long-lasting frame. We are so excited about this gardening season. My son and I are really into it right now, and this class was the perfect start for us to figure out how to get a raised bed going outside in our yard, and we are ready to go because we took the time to get comfortable with the tools and the information. If there is something I'm wanting to learn in the crafting space and I actually want to watch a human doing it and showing me step by step how to accomplish this, I go to Craftsy. I've also got great news. The first 1,000 of you watching this video to either scan this QR code or the link in my description will get their first full year of Craftsy Premium membership for only $1.49. This offer is valid for new members only, and I highly recommend that you take them up on this deal. You will not regret it. $1.49, guys, that's like less than a cup of coffee, and you will learn so much in that full year of membership. Definitely don't sleep on this one. All right, now that I'm up to date on my raised bed gardening techniques and tools, it's time to tackle this little wheel of intimidation and get you comfortable with the rotary cutter. Tip number 1, start with the correct size rotary cutter for the project you're making. You want your rotary cutter to feel manageable in your hand. You don't want to feel overwhelmed by it, or you're already going to be off to a bad start. The rotary cutter actually comes in quite a few different sizes, and I'm going to show you 4 of those sizes right now, from smallest to largest. The littlest rotary cutter that I typically keep on hand is the 18 millimeter. They also make a 28 millimeter. Can see the size difference there. These are great for when you're doing tiny, intricate cuts, applique, cleaning up little edges that are kind of tough to get to. I don't use these a whole lot. I'm just going to be honest. I rarely use these sizes, but some of you out there may use these all the time. It really depends on what you're sewing. The 45 millimeter and the 60 millimeter are probably the ones that you'll see the most. The 45 millimeter is the one that I recommend to all new sewists. If they don't know what size to get, this is the OG, the original, the best kind of standard, easy to control size on the market. The 60 millimeter is fabulous if you're cutting through thicker projects. Think like at the end of your quilt when you're cutting through quilting cotton, batting and backing. This guy's a beast. He's going to give you more power. It's kind of like the 4-wheel drive of rotary cutters. But again, my favorite to recommend is the 45 millimeter. It's just a great, versatile, all-around size rotary cutter. Within those sizes, you can actually also buy different shaped blades for your rotary cutter. That's kind of fun, right? The most common blade is just your regular straight blade, which is going to give you just a nice straight cut along your fabric. Another blade that you could try if you're feeling a little sassy is the wavy blade or the zigzag blade. This is the wavy one, and this is more of a zigzag. If you are wanting to give your edges or your raw edges a nice finish that is like not going to fray, this works very similarly to your pinking shears. When you use this, you just run it the same way you normally would, but it's going to give you sort of a tight wave finish, and this really helps keep things from fraying. So this is a good option if you don't want to use pinking shears. I also know quite a few people who work in like papers where they're doing scrapbooking or memory books, and they keep these on hand because it gives you a nice, quick, fun finish to the edge of your fabric. So that's how those cut, and you can order these with any sort of rotary cutter. Just make sure that your brand is listed under the types of rotary cutters that this blade will work on. They also make different shapes of rotary cutters. So if you have any sort of issues with your hands, arthritis, or if you had surgery and you have more sort of a weaker hand, this type of hand motion and holding your rotary cutter like this might hurt your hand. I mean, I don't have any of those things, but my hand even starts to hurt after a while with one of these styles of rotary cutters. They also make, this particular brand is by Martelli, and this is an ergo rotary cutter, and you hold it in your hand like this, and it cuts very easily, but you're holding it almost like in a fist, which helps kind of ease some of those pains that you might have coming down your arm. And it cuts wonderfully. It's just a learning curve. So you find the thing that works best for you and go with it. Now, when it comes to rotary cutting, there's a trifecta that needs to happen here. There are 3 tools that go together, and they're all best friends, and you really can't function without all 3. So we've conquered number 1, just showing you the rotary cutter. By the way, this is the Quilter Select brand, and I really like this brand for a couple different reasons, one of which I'll show you later on when we're changing our rotary cutter blades. But this is a fantastic weight. It's not too heavy, but it's heavy enough to feel sturdy. I also like the Creative Grids brand. These are 2 of my very favorite rotary cutters. And one of the reasons I really like these is you can use these both right-handed and left-handed. Let's be honest, left-handed people tend to get the shaft when it comes to a lot of tools in the sewing room. But these 2 brands are very sympathetic to that, and this blade can come out this way or it can come this way, either one, which is really helpful. And then this one also is marked for left or right. So if you're left-handed, these are 2 good options. Anything I show you that I point out in the video, I will try to link in the description below if you're interested in picking it up. Back to our trifecta. You're gonna need a self-healing mat. Never, ever, 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 ever cut directly on your table with a rotary cutter. Ever. Like ever. I know. Someone out there is thinking, but it's just 1 cut. It's not gonna be that big of a deal. It is. It's that big of a deal. These things are sharp, and it will completely ruin your tabletop. And then you'll be mad at yourself that you didn't use a rotary cutter on your self-healing mat. So we're going to use the self-healing mat every single time, okay? Say it with me. We use it every single time. My favorite size to recommend to new sewists is the 18 by 24 self-healing mat. This one is made by Olfa. I also like Creative Grids. These are great mats. They last a long time. This is a good portable size. They also come in smaller and even bigger size. The one that I have on my current table, you can kind of see it here. This one is 58 by 30, I think. And that is perfect for me. They make ones that are even bigger and they make ones that are even smaller. 18 by 24 though is a really good first size if you're trying to figure out what size to invest in. It's big enough to cut along the width of most fabrics if you turn it this way, but then it's also not so big that it's taking over your whole sewing room. This not only protects the surface of the table upon which you are cutting, but it also is going to help that blade on your rotary cutter slide smoothly, which makes you feel more in control and most importantly, keeps you safe. A wobbly or slippery surface is going to create a nervous feeling, which will then lead to injuries, and that is not what we want. So this is an important thing to have. So we've talked about rotary cutters, cutting mat. Number 3 in the trifecta, acrylic rulers. This is important. When you cut on top of your self-healing mat with a rotary cutter, you need something to run your blade up against to ensure that you're getting accurate cuts every time. My favorite for new sewists and just any sewist is the Quilter Select brand. And let me tell you why. This is just a cheapo 3x18 ruler that I got off Amazon. And do you see how it kind of slides all over the fabric? The Quilter Select ruler is going to have a special backing on it that keeps it's not sliding. Like it keeps it from moving when it's on your fabric. And this is so helpful if you are nervous about that ruler sliding and you cutting off your fingers. This takes away one of those fears. I am pushing on this right now and it is not moving on the fabric. Okay. This is a great line of rulers. I have the 3x18. Again, these are all linked below. This is another one I use. This is the 6x12. I use this a lot in quilting. This one I use a ton in quilting if we're cutting the width of fabric and we're cutting down some squares. This is the 6.5x24. Super great size for quilting. And then if you're going to be making a lot of quilt squares, I love having a square ruler. And I have several different sizes of these. I'm not going to bore you all day with showing you all of my quilting rulers. What you'll find is as you sew and quilt more, you will develop a lovely collection of these and you'll have pretty much every size by the end of the day. I even have a little teeny one. Wow. I even have a little teeny one that I love. It's the 2.5x2.5 by Quilter Select. And this is great for squaring up your small quilt squares when you're making little tiny squares. So helpful. And it doesn't move on the fabric. If I had to pick my very, very favorite size quilting ruler, it's probably the 3x18. I don't know why. I think it's the first ruler I started using and it makes me feel like I can accomplish anything. It's got enough size to it that I can make the cuts I need, but it's small enough that it's not obtrusive and in the way. So if you're going to pick one, I would recommend this one. So as I said, the ruler is going to be playing double duty here when you're cutting fabric. Not only is it going to be giving you an accurate straight measurement, but it's also going to be protecting your hand because you're not getting your hand close to that fabric. The rule that I like to follow and that I like to teach my students is when you are using your rotary cutter, look at those measurements on it and make sure that your hand is at least an inch away from the edge. And you can measure that because your hand is right on top of that measurement. And I prefer to make an L shape with my hand. I feel like if I'm not using a handle, which I'll show you later, this gives me pressure on both ends of my ruler, which is going to help me get a nice, accurate, clean, safe cut. But maybe that scares you still. Maybe just using your hand an inch away is not enough for you. And that's okay. I've got some ideas. You can invest in these cut-resistant gloves. You can get these at Harbor Freight. You can get them at Amazon. They're so helpful in making you feel more confident about your cutting skills. So I'm going to be honest, these are not completely like if you lay this down on your table and cut full force, just straight across, it'll cut the fingers off the gloves. More than likely. I'm not going to try it because my fingers are in the gloves. But I will say if you, and I'm not suggesting you do this at home, but if you hit it with your finger, you see I'm hitting, it's not going to cut me. Okay. And that's helpful. So this is not foolproof, but it is helpful in developing a little bit more of a confidence when it comes to cutting, at least until you're used to your rotary cutter. Why not invest in these just for safe reasons? And you use it just the same. And they give you a lot of dexterity. You're not going to lose your dexterity in using these. And again, nice clean cuts without the drama or the fear. I also feel like when you wear a glove like this, it's going to help you relax and your hands relax, which in turn will give you safer, cleaner, precise cuts. The other item that I find helpful, and I'm going to give you a little insider secret on this, so stay tuned, is this handle. Now, I got this one for around 20 bucks at, I think, a local quilt shop. And the way that this works is it's not a telephone, even though it looks like one, and it might be fun to try and pretend it's a telephone. What you're going to do actually is pop these little side parts up here, place it down on the center of your ruler, and then you're going to press the suction cups down and lock them. This then suctions to the ruler, which helps you evenly distribute your weight across the ruler when you're cutting. This really helps with safety. It also really keeps your fingers completely away from the edge of your acrylic ruler if you're concerned about cutting yourself. Look how far away my hand is right now. There's no way I'm going to cut this when I'm cutting my fabric. This is also helpful if if you have arthritis or issues with your muscles in your hands, this may not be comfortable for you for a long period of time, but making a fist around a handle might be better. So this is another good option. The insider secret is you can get these at Harbor Freight. They're shower handles. I've heard they're actually not great in the shower for safety, but they are great for using on your rotary cutter and your acrylic ruler for safety. You can get them for, I think, $6 or $7 at Harbor Freight. All right, now that we've covered the trifecta of what you need and some of the additional little items that might be helpful to you as you're getting used to rotary cutting, let's talk about some tips and tricks on how to stay safe and get really good cuts with your rotary cutter. Tip number one, and it is the most important thing I will say to you today, is when you are not using this cutter to actively cut fabric, it needs to be completely closed on your table. Non-negotiable. This is for your safety. I have been guilty of this myself. I have left it open and gotten really close to hurting myself really badly because you just get so many things on your sewing table that you forget what you're doing and you reach to grab for something and you don't want to be grabbing an open rotary cutter blade. It is the kind of cut that you almost don't even feel at first because it's so bad, if that makes sense. So just from the get-go, make this muscle memory that you cut, close, put it down. Get it? Okay. Cut, close, put it down. Should we make it a song? Cut, close, put it down. Cut, close, put it down. Cut, close, put it down so you don't cut your finger off. Okay, now that we got that one out of the way. My second tip for you is to let the blade do the work. I think a lot of new sewists feel like they need to press down so hard that they're chopping wood or cutting through a tree branch. That's not necessary if you have a nice, sharp, clean blade on your rotary cutter. If you find yourself pressing so hard that you are trying to basically cut through a tree branch, what that means is that your blade is most likely dull and you need to change it. That's right. A sharp rotary cutter blade should glide through your fabric like a hot knife through butter. This is a brand new blade and it's cutting beautifully. I'll tell you, this actually has an old blade on it and it has, I think, a little nick on the blade. And I'm going to show you what that looks like because it's important to be able to troubleshoot these kinds of things. If you are cutting through your fabric and you hear that little skip, and then when you go to pick it up, it looks like this, that means that there's something on your blade that is causing it to not get friction with your cutting mat the entire way through. And it's time to junk that blade and get rid of it. A dull blade is not only going to frustrate you, it's also going to be dangerous. And it sounds backwards, I know, but trying to muscle through this is going to be way more dangerous because you're going to be pushing and losing focus on what you're actually supposed to be doing, which is a nice straight cut, if that makes sense. So on that topic, let's cover how to change our rotary cutter blades. As you can see, this one is dull and it needs a new blade, so we're gonna go ahead and change it today. Most rotary cutters, and it really depends on the brand, but a lot of them are gonna have this little screw set up on the back. And in order to get that off, you're going to just hold this part on the front. And if you wanna wear your safety gloves for this, that's fine. In fact, let's do it just to be extra super safe. So I'm gonna hold this and I'm going to twist that screw. Hold it parallel to your table though, so that everything doesn't just dump off. Okay, and I like to lay things face up as I take them off so that I remember how to put them back on, because it's also going to have a lot of times this weird little curvy washer. So I know that when I put these down, they're going to go back up the way that I took them off. Okay, so now this is loose and I am going to flip it down onto my cutting mat safely. And because I have these on, I can use just my fingers. But if I didn't, we can also grab some tweezers. Also a great option for changing rotary cutter blades. Okay, and we're gonna drop it into our jar. You can get one of those sharps containers online, whatever you have, just make sure you're keeping your items safely away from small hands and with a nice tight lid. I keep this on a high shelf that nobody even knows what it is because nobody cares that I take Nutrafol vitamins. And this is not an advertisement for Nutrafol, but it has helped my hair. I'm just gonna be honest. I do love this supplement. Okay, back to what we were talking about. So I have this new set of blades right here. I like to keep mine in this, I have a container right here with all kinds of weird little notions and things. This is where I keep all of my backup blades, and I keep a lot on hand. You change your rotary cutter a lot more than you think if you're going to be sewing often, and I'm sewing every day, so my rotary cutter gets changed quite a bit. So I'm going to reach in here, and you can do this with your finger if you want, if you've got that nice protective glove on. And this then just slides right out. I'm going to put these back in the container. We're going to take the front piece and lay that on there, and then lay it back into our rotary cutter and twist it until it drops down. Okay, lay your finger on this little button so that when you flip it over, it stays in place. And we laid everything face up, so I know that I'm just going to lay it right back down and tighten the screw or the bolt or the nut or whatever this is. Okay, now you should have a put together blade. But here's the thing, with these screw-on ones, sometimes we have to mess with the tension of it a little bit. So give it a little run, and now I can tell this is going really, I have to push really hard to make that move. So what I'm gonna do is unscrew this just maybe a quarter turn. Open it back up. Let's try it again. That's still too tight for my liking. So I'm going to close it back up and unscrew it just a little bit more. Okay, that is perfect. So that is how we change this one. Now on the Quilters Select ones, I'm going to be honest, this is another reason to buy this one. I love this because it's magnetic. So when you take this blade off, you are simply going to pull this down and you can lift this front part and the blade comes with it, which means that you could just knock this down into your sharps container and pop a new one on where it's going to be magnetized. It's always good to clean this out. Any fluff, that will help keep your rotary cutter moving safely and nicely as well. And then all you do is pop this back in and slide this back up. So much easier than this version, if I'm being honest. That's why I love the Quilter Select brand. I can't say enough good things about this one. Just all around great tools for rotary cutting. Okay, so we've talked about changing the blade. We've talked about how to safely navigate around the blade when changing it. This glove is great, great idea. And we talked about how often to change your blade. So again, if it starts skipping cuts, then you know it's time to change it. Or if it's just making you push a lot harder to get through that fabric, also time to change it. Now, one quick tip that I want to share that I actually use all the time is I have I've clearly got way too many rotary cutters, but on a daily basis, I keep 2 main 45mm rotary cutters at my disposal at all times. And here's why. When I finish this one, if it's getting, dull and I'm having to push harder on my main rotary cutter, I have a second backup rotary cutter that is not meant for fabric. This is my fabric rotary cutter. This is my everything else rotary cutter. So when this gets dull, I'm going to move this blade over to here. This is giving me longer use with my blades, but it's also giving me a rotary cutter that I can cut through paper, cardboard, zippers, string, things I don't care about making this any worse because it's already bad. It's not going to be any better. So this is a helpful tip because I use this a lot when I'm cutting paper patterns that I need to tape together. It just goes way faster than having to cut them with scissors. So that is one quick tip, is keep 2 rotary cutter blades. Move this blade to here and then this blade to the sharps container. Gives you longer life out of your blades too. The next tip involves our stance and our table for cutting our fabric. As you can see, my table right now comes up to about my mid-thigh, okay? Like right at the middle of my thigh. This is a good height for not only sitting and sewing, but also for cutting. And the reason is that you can get your body weight down onto this table to cut safely and more securely, a lot easier than if your cutting table was, let's say, up here. Now, I talk to a lot of sewists who say, oh, I got one of those fancy cutting tables and it's right here, but I'm having the worst time cutting. Well, if you're trying to cut something right here, look where your elbow is. Look at the leverage that you're missing, as opposed to when it's down here and you have all of this that can move that rotary cutter forward. Okay, so I'm not saying change out all of your furniture, but do think about it if you are going to be buying some new sewing furniture. I recommend a cutting table that is the same height as what you are going to be sitting and sewing at, which is great because, then you don't have to buy different stations for each thing. One item that I do have in my sewing room, and I have 2 of them, is I like the Flexi Spot E7 Pro. It's a table that can go up and down. It like raises and lowers with just a touch of a button. So if I do feel like standing up to sew something or to lay out pieces, I can move the table up higher, but a lot of times I leave it right at this height because cutting is easier and sewing are both easier at this height. I think it's about 28 inches off the ground. So here's what I tell my students in my rotary cutting confidence class. When you are cutting fabric, it really is helpful to stand up and think about the distribution of your body weight. I know that sounds insane for just using a rotary cutter, but it does make a lot of difference. So what I like to do is I'll put whatever my left, like if I'm cutting with my right hand, which I do, I'm going to put my left foot forward, almost like leaning into the table a little bit. I'm going to place my acrylic ruler along the measurement that I want. I'm leaning in towards my cutting table. I've got my L shape with my hand and it is 1 inch at least away. Pick up your rotary cutter and only now am I opening up that blade and I'm leaning into the cut. And it goes so much easier if you do that. So standing up really does make a difference. And again, you don't have to do all of these items. These are just some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way that help make my life a little easier when it comes to rotary cutting. And I'll be honest, I don't stand up to cut everything. If I'm just needing to cut, the raw edge off of something really quickly, I will sit and make that cut very carefully. But when it comes to cutting like long strips by the width of fabric, I'm always going to stand up to do that because my cuts will be more precise and they will be safer. My next tip is involving scraps. Before you cut that beautiful, expensive, pretty fabric, cut some scraps first and just get comfortable. I recommend doing 5 straight lines, just straight lines across the piece of scrap fabric. Then move up to a few strips. This is if you're new. If you've never done it before, don't just dive into that beautiful fabric because you're going to be mad if you mess it up. Do 5 straight lines on a small piece. Do 5 longer lines that are by the width of the fabric, just to get used to the flow and the feel of it. Confidence comes from repetition. Nobody is born knowing how to use a rotary cutter. You build that comfort one cut at a time. And if rotary cutters make you nervous, I want you to hear me when I say, confidence in sewing is never about being scared. It's about doing something over and over and over again and really locking it into your muscle memory until it doesn't feel scary anymore. Confidence comes through practice. I promise you, after a few practice projects with this rotary cutter, you are going to wonder how you have not had one until now. You will kick yourself from all the projects you made before today. Because once you get comfortable with the rotary cutter, there is no looking back. You are going to be unstoppable in your sewing projects. And it'll become your bestie in the sewing room. Clearly, I have a lot of besties in the sewing room, and you know what? That's okay. I'm a friend to all. I hope you found this helpful. I do want you to know that you are awesome and you can do this, and you just need to practice. I promise it will get easier as you do it with time. Just keep sewing, okay? If you have questions about anything I talked about in the video today, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I want to be helpful to you. I want to be a good resource and a trusted person in your sewing journey. I'm Chelsea with She Sew Seams. Thank you so much for following along today, and I will see you next time. Happy sewing, everyone!